we are reflecting on more about why. And I think you enjoyed the special item there, didn't you? The fact that we can praise our God, and our God is wonderful. And especially as we are looking through the cross, we can see the greatness of God. He is a parent that when his child disobeys, he gets the smack. That is, the father gets the smack. Usually it is the opposite, isn't it? But Father or God takes the punishment for the transgression of child. There is no other God like that. And this is what we are praising. This is what we are worshiping today. As we are reflecting on the Word of God, we are reflecting on the time of crucifixion and what Jesus has gone through in order that we would not have to. Remember, in the previous communion services, we were focusing on suffering of Jesus. We were talking about the fact that he knew what he was coming for. That was the last Lord's Supper that we were focusing on. He knew, from the beginning, prophecies were predicted, and he was going to the cross, knowing his destiny, knowing that when he is coming out of this upper room, the only way he will go is to the cross. Today I want to skip on to the next section because the text, the record of these last minutes of life of Jesus is saying, now from 6th hour until the 9th hour there was darkness over all the land. And about 9th hour Jesus cried out with a loud voice saying, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. That is, my God, why have you forsaken me? And those who stood by said, this man is calling for Elijah. Immediately one of them went and got a sponge and filled it with sour wine and put it on a reed and offered it to him to drink. Others said, let him alone. Let us see if Elijah will come. And at that time, Jesus cried out again and yielded up his spirit. I would like to challenge you to memorize these words. Because as you go through the day, you can reflect on what Jesus has done for you. You don't have to have a book in your hand, but you can reflect on what Jesus has done for you. And Jesus cried out. And here we are told that why there was darkness in all the land. Why was there darkness over whole land? We are reading that a thick darkness covered all land in the brightest part of the day for 3 hours. So thick darkness that could not be explained why. And the thing is, some people argue that there was a natural eclipse. Whether it was natural or not natural, we don't know, or we cannot prove. Let's not argue about it. But it was it was supernatural in the sense that God has predicted it, that He will do it. We read in the book Desire of Ages a statement like this: complete darkness, like a funeral pall, enveloped the cross. Interesting. There was darkness over all the land unto the 9th hour. There was no eclipse or other natural cause for this darkness, which was so deep as midnight without moon or stars. It was a miraculous testimony given by God that the faith of after generations must be confirmed. Interesting statement. Complete darkness. The supernatural nature of the darkness was predicted, as I said before. And if you go to the book of Amos, chapter 8 and verse 9, it says, "It shall come to pass in that day. Which day? In that day, says the Lord God, that I will make the sun go down at noon. Amos says that. And I will darken the earth in broad daylight. I will turn your feasts into mourning. Predicted in Old Testament. And whether we like it or not, whether it was supernatural or not, God has predicted that he will make the noonday, the brightest day or the time of the day, he will make into darkness so thick that it will look, that they will not be able to see through. Further, we read in Desire of Ages, in that thick darkness, God's presence was hidden. Where did we find in the past a cloud of darkness in the experience of Israel? Exactly when there is Egyptian armies coming from behind, okay, are ready to extinct them. And what happens? God puts a dark cloud on the side of Egyptians and bright light on the side of Israelites. Wow, interesting. I further read, he makes darkness his pavilion and conceals his glory from human eyes. You can see what's going on. At that 9th hour, the darkness lifted from the people, but still enveloped the Savior. He just said that the darkness enveloped his glory. What was happening? The Father was present with his Son. He enveloped his glory with the cloud. It was a symbol of agony and honor that weighed upon his heart. No eye could pierce through the gloom that surrounded the cross, and none could penetrate the deeper gloom that enshrouded the suffering soul of Christ. The divinity was united in sacrifice. Why was Jesus there then crying what that he did, that we are reading in verse 34. It was Matthew 27, verses 45 to 50 that I quoted. In verse 46, we are reading that he cried out with a loud voice. What was the motivation with this crying out loud? When you look at the whole experience, as we are reading the record of his of minutes or hours before sacrifice, we are reading. We cannot avoid that he was actually fulfilling the prophecy that we find in Isaiah, where like a lamb to the slaughter he was led, and he would not cry out. All through the time, in his anguish, despite being betrayed and forsaken by those who were closest, despite being unjustly tried, convicted, and publicly humiliated, despite being scourged, beaten, and spat upon, carry heavy cross into the place of his own execution, and nailed to the cross, he did not give any sound of complaint. But then he was enveloped in the darkness. And remember that when that happened, he cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" At this 3 hours darkness, he experienced the darkness, separation from God. He witnessed it with his statement, my God, why have you forsaken me?" God was close to him, yet he was separated from him. In what way? He took my and your sin. And God in Isaiah says that he punished him for our transgressions. How did he punish him? with the outer darkness. The outer darkness that you and me would otherwise have to experience if it was not for him. Verse 47 and 48 tells us that that was the loud cry, that was a kind of scream. Jesus actually, was quoting Psalm 22, verse 1. Would you like to check that? Psalm 22, verse 1 says,
my God, why have you forsaken me?
It was predicted. The fulfillment on every step. We are not believing some fables. Jesus came to this point, and he knew that what he was going to take. He took upon himself the punishment, the payment for our transgression, for our sin, as we are reading in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 10, verse 45. When God made man, it was intended that he will be in love with God, that he will be a free moral agent, that he will have freedom of choice. God knew that no true love exists when there is no true freedom. But how would you know that there is true love? God already demonstrated it, but without tree of knowledge of good and evil, there would be no opportunity to exercise freedom of choice. So God provided by the tree, the tree that was excluded from use, in order that Adam and Eve would demonstrate that because they love God, they will obey him. They will not transgress what God has said. You can have love on one side and no return of love. And here it is, Jesus was waiting for Adam and Eve to return equal love to God. Unforced, love that would be coming from them, not because they were pressed to do it. You see, love isn't love unless it is freely given, and Adam and Eve were expected to freely give. And God said that man needs to make a free choice. And he said also that when he will choose to disobey, what will happen? He will know the death. In other words, the word that is used there, God said, dying you will die. And what happens? Men started dying. Why? Because they separated themselves from the source of life. First, he started dying spiritually. And ultimately, he would die physically. That's what happened. Now, interesting quote I found. A powerful change occurred in the intellect of Adam and Eve after they believed Satan's deception. Powerful change in the mind when they accepted testimony from Satan. Distrust and unbelief towards the Creator become part of their nature. So it's natural to us to trust Satan. Some people in this world are saying, let me be natural. You see what's going on? Natural is to distrust God. On the other hand, it becomes part of their mental fiber to respond to the voice of master of deception and his associate spirits. Interesting, powerful change that took place when Adam and Eve decided to trust Satan. This is the spiritual reality that Jesus came to change for us. Because otherwise, as we are reading in the book of Romans, chapter 3, verse 11, there is no one who understands, there is no one who seeks God. Why? No one who understands the reality of the situation, and therefore they are not searching after God, because it's natural for them to be natural. Do we get that? So why would I go and search for something when it's natural? Let me be. That's exactly what Satan wants to do, and we were studying it in the Sabbath school lesson, that we are desensitized to the point that, that we object to good news because we don't understand the good news. And God came in the person of Jesus. He became one of us in order that he would give us demonstration of what love is about. We did not understand the problem, but God took care, and he became one of us in order that he would say, okay, that's how it works. Okay, you sinned, I take it, I get shot. That's what happened. Also, one of the theologians says this: in the cross we may see the dimensions of divine love. Indeed, love takes the initiative and bears the burden necessary to make a relationship right. When child transgresses, natural thing for a father is to be offended and punish the child. But the loving heart of the father actually takes the burden of transgression upon himself, because he feels responsible for that child. And God felt responsible for the transgressing humanity. And he demonstrated his love where his words were. There was also his walk, or his actions. He came to show us. Jesus cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And that at that point, Jesus have experienced the separation from God as a payment or penalty for separating himself. He reversed the separation that Adam and Eve did. And what did he do? Beyond everything, in obedience, he submitted himself to the Father. Opposite to what Satan did, opposite to what Adam and Eve did. So he starts new, powerful change in the mind of those who will follow him. You see, the video played in the reverse. Jesus reverses the things. Jesus talked about the darkness. And see, because Jesus was separated by darkness, true? And often Jesus is talking about outer darkness, and the parable of wedding feast is actually useful here. You've got the parable in Matthew 22 verse, and I will quote verse 13. The parable is where feast is organized, and what happens at the feast? The groom comes and finds one man without proper garment. And what does he say in verse 13? Matthew chapter 22, verse 13, he says, "Then the king said to the servants, bind him his hands and feet, take him away and cast him into the outer darkness." And what else happens? "There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." People are saying, if I deserve hell, send me to hell. We will have a great party, because I will not be alone. They think it is a joke. But Son of God, Jesus, who became one of us, could not suffer in comparison to the love and closeness and intimacy with the Father. He could not suffer the separation for limited time, because he was dying for limited human beings. So for limited time, he suffered separation, spiritual separation from God, from the Father. in order that we would not have to suffer it for eternity. He swapped places with us. And Jesus, the infinite Son, suffered for us. And it is symbolized in the darkness that is enshrouding him. He is separated, and then then he is coming out. And when we are reading this, when we are going through this, Jesus, then he is asking for a drink. At the end of these 3 hours, as he is coming out of darkness, he is saying in the Gospel of John, he is saying, "I thirst." Immediately, what we are reading in Gospel of Matthew, immediately one of them runs and fills the sponge with everything, with the drink that was at hand. Did they think of lightly sparkled water? No, the drink that they had for transgressors was sour wine with gall. What they did, so he filled and gave it to him. And then you see, probably he wanted to have some kind of drink to give him strength, because the next thing that happens, he is making that powerful statement: "It is finished." Probably he was so much exhausted that he would not be able to even say that. But he has a drink, and immediately he says, "It is finished." "It is finished" comes from Greek word tetelestai, which was sealed every time full payment was made for something. Tetelestai, paid in full. Jesus said, "It is paid in full." And after he experienced the spiritual separation from Father, now he was ready to experience the physical separation. And he said, "It is finished." And what? Yielded up his spirit. Because then later on we say, "In your hands I give my spirit." He gave himself into the hands who could be most trusted. This is what Jesus has done for us. Having experienced the spiritual death for all mankind, Jesus allowed himself to be physically separated from life. That was the sacrifice that he has made. So now, as we are reflecting on that, let us continue reflecting on it. Let us also take part in that symbol of humility that Jesus left with us. Humility that has led Jesus to come from the glory of the entire universe, lay it aside, and become one of us, to be spat upon, to be separated, to take the risk of separating himself for a moment that was a dreading thought. And because we don't understand the implications of total separation from God, we make jokes about it, or humans are making jokes about it. That is nothing. You can imagine, Jesus was saying no empty words. And when he said that there will be wailing and gnashing, whipping and gnashing of teeth. It's serious. He told us everything as it is. He knows, he understands, and that's why he shared in his love. Let us take part in foot washing, and let us encourage one another to maintain the same humble spirit as we are submitting to his lordship. May God bless each one of us as we are taking part in this symbol of humility.